I'm on the road a lot between Florence, Coolidge, Santan Valley. Almost every day I have a meeting of some sort.
Tonight, Sheri George logs another 20 miles. Farm fields rush by as she makes her way to one more meeting. The Santan Valley resident is on a mission. She's fighting to get her neighbors the help they need by bringing mental health care services to rural Arizona.
Sign in if you guys don't mind, and then cookies. On a daily basis here in the state of Arizona, kids and adults are denied access to treatment for mental health and substance use, or as they call it, behavioral health. I mean, it is truly shocking.
Where we need the most help, southern part of the state.
It isn't shocking for Dan Dirksen. As director of the Arizona Center for Rural Health, Dirksen works with rural communities and tracks their access to care. He says more than 1 million Arizonans live in areas where mental health services can be hard to come by.
We have shortages. The highest need specialties that we identify: behavioral health providers, psychologists, behavioral health workers, psychiatrists in rural areas. Once you get outside of Phoenix and Tucson and some of the cities like Flagstaff and Yuma and a few others, you really are in quite rural and often frontier areas of the state where there may not be any health providers at all for many miles.
Part of the problem is attracting health professionals to those areas and keeping them there.
Most of our training in health professions, many of those health professions, is in big cities. Where do people end up in practice when they graduate? In big cities, often within a couple miles of where they train. So our challenge is really, how do we move that health professions training pipeline for behavioral health and some of these high need specialties closer to the areas of need?
Rural communities face other challenges too. Lack of funding and transportation, inefficiencies in the state mental health system, and confusion about how to navigate that system keep many rural residents from seeking or receiving the care they need.
There's no agency acting on behalf of the county and explaining what the needs of the county are. And then there's nobody out in the rural communities to help the families. Any type of services are probably 70 miles away in a lot of cases. And then if you do have your loved one over in Phoenix at a facility, if you're lucky enough to even get them there, how do you visit them? How do you support them? They're so far away. And then many families can't afford the gas, back and forth. It costs a lot of money to go back and forth.
That's why Sheri George keeps hitting the road. She's inspired by the struggling families she meets in rural Pinal County and by her son, Jay.
He was very, very sweet. A key thing about Jay when he was small is he was always for the underdog, so to speak. He was always concerned about other kids, and if they were being picked on by someone else, he wanted to defend them. Always concerned for people who were more vulnerable and needed protection or help.
In high school, Jay began to suffer from depression and self-medicate with drugs.
He said that the reason why he used crystal meth was to get rid of the voices in his head. It's like it filled a void, and he said it got rid of the misery and sadness that he felt. He thought at that point in time that he could control it, and it would just be to, help him cope with life, essentially. And of course, that did not happen.
In early 2010, Jay told his mother he'd found a facility in Phoenix, nearly 50 miles from Santan Valley, that could treat both his substance abuse and his worsening mental illness.
He actually put his belongings that he thought he would need, his personal care items for the hospital, in a pillowcase. And he and I walked through the doors of this facility. I was with him through the whole time, and when we walked through there, when we walked through there, he had this incredible look of hope on his face. I hadn't seen that in a long time. I'll never forget that. They came out to get him, and they said they would need to do an assessment. When he came out, he had this crestfallen look on his face. And he said, "Mom, they said that I'm not bad enough, and they're not going to admit me."
Just weeks later, Jay Joachim took his own life. It was then that Sheri set out to learn why her son had been unable to get help.
I remember having an epiphany one day when I spoke to an assistant director at a state agency and explained some of the barriers that people were encountering and that we had encountered. And he said, "If you don't like it, go talk to the legislature." And he was just completely uncaring and unconcerned and just responded with that very terse answer. And so I remember thinking, you know what? If nobody else is going to help these people who need help, then I'm going to start. We have a few people here in our area that want to do something. So if nobody else is going to do it, we're going to do it.
But that's all under Florence's governance now, as opposed to Coolidge.
The Santan Valley Substance Abuse Coalition held its first meeting in October of 2011. Since then, it has pushed for statewide reforms that could help rural residents. It has also helped nearly 200 families find services and poured thousands of hours into researching the behavioral health care needs of rural communities.
It is critical that every county have a community coalition or an access point to care that can coordinate the behavioral health needs for that county with state and service providers. We have to make sure that anyone who needs that help gets it.
Community activism like Sheri's can go a long way. Patricia Rogers, the outreach coordinator for the Southeastern Arizona chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, has seen community and peer-to-peer groups step in to offer needed services in rural Cochise County.
Some of them have mobile outreach programs where they travel to different communities and have meetings. The fact that there's smaller communities and so many people know each other can encourage people to help each other.
But rural communities need more support than what they can provide for themselves.
If we don't deal with it well by having the types of health providers we need in the communities where they're most needed, readily accessible, can't be 3 months when you're in crisis and you need immediate help, then we pay for it 10 times more by incarcerating people, putting them in jails, all these types of things that we do when we don't have an adequate health system for behavioral health services. If we don't invest, we're going to pay for it down the road. It's just a matter of where you decide to pay and how much collateral damage you're willing to do to individuals and to families by not getting the services they need where they most need them.
In late 2015, the coalition led by Sheri George helped secure the first comprehensive behavioral health center in Santan Valley.
When we had the grand opening of the La Frontera Impact Facility here in December, I actually had someone come up to me and say, there should be a plaque on the front of this facility that says, "In honor of Jay Joachim." What our hope is that Jay's story will inspire decision makers to implement changes to the mental health and substance abuse delivery systems here in the state of Arizona so that everyone has an opportunity to get better.